Okay, I'm just thinking what we can do for the little blurb. Yeah, I guess this is the start.
Yeah, this is the blurb.
Fair enough. Cue the theme tune.
Do, 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 do.
Hello and welcome back to episode 9 of ParaNormality. My name is Harry and as I always say, I'm here with James. How you doing, mate?
Hey, buddy. What's going on?
I'm ready to talk about cool UFOs and interesting lights in the sky that don't turn out to be flares from an active military drill.
Yeah. Is this gonna be a something burger?
This is very much, for me, this is your prime rib. This is succulent,
bloody hell.
like Angus beef. This is full on, like you've got your relish, you've got your salad if you want it, you've got your brioche, sesame seed bun.
Brioche, shit.
Yeah,
That's
you've
fancy.
got your lovely smoked cheese in the middle. This is a burger that is fully stacked and ready to go.
Damn right.
This isn't just pictures of
Cinema
low
plan.
light. Yeah, this isn't low light compression flares. This is as legit as I feel it gets, next to maybe the Nimitz. I think this is as close to the Nimitz case as possible. The only main difference for me is obviously the Nimitz had lots of military personnel, but this has thousands of eyewitnesses, like thousands, not 50 people on a military base, and only 2 of them ever came forward. The entire city, the entire town that this thing went over, they witnessed something. So this is not a nothing burger. This is a delicious, juicy burger.
I'm game.
But you know what I've got to do before we start, don't you, James?
Yep, the best bit.
Got to do the spiel. So if you enjoy this show, please do give us a like, give us a share. Our recent episode, the one where we talk about Big Boy Corbell, is doing quite well. We're also on YouTube now. One of our friends of the show, Jeff Townsend, has he's contacted me and he's now uploading the YouTube the episodes onto YouTube on our behalf. It's part of his sort of like media outlet. So all of our episodes automatically get uploaded. They're fully transcribed as well. So if you do want to listen with subtitles as well, they're all automatically transcribed. And yeah, the new episode is doing quite well, which is always good to hear. So again, just like share it with everyone that you know. Share it with 50 people on a military base. Why not?
Yep.
I mean, maybe only 2 of them might listen to it, but that's the same percentages that Corbell works with, so it works for me as well. And also follow us on on Twitter. I don't know why I said Instagram. I'm not making an Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. We are at PodNormality. You can find us on Facebook. We are ParaNormality Podcast. You can find us on TikTok. We had a bit of a smash hit the other day, didn't we, James?
Hell yeah.
And you even joined TikTok like the grumpy old man you are.
I felt wrong in every way. It was real bad. Like, yeah, we'll talk off the thing about that. But
it's gross.
It's gross.
I don't like it either. But from those thousands of of video views, James, do you want to know how many new listeners we grab from that?
I don't know where to start.
0.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So the same day that we got like 10,000 views on one of our TikTok videos, we got our lowest ever listener base for a day in the last month. So
champions.
Maybe people that watch 15-second videos don't have the attention span possibly for an hour-long conversation.
Absolutely. That's my problem with it.
I'm going to have to start uploading the full podcast in 15-second chunks, I think.
Damn right.
And it'll take a long time, but...
15-second podcast, man. It's way forward.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, it could be called a post-it note podcast, and it's just
that's very good. Yeah.
Quick and to the point.
Or Jeremy Corbell's Evidence podcast.
Welcome to ParaNormality. Jeremy Corbell's a fraud. Bye.
Bye. See you later.
Weaponized.
I'm public enemy number 1.
So follow us on all of your socials that you want to, or if you don't, that's fine. Share us with 50 people on a military base. And I hope that your ears will enjoy what we're going to subject them to today. For me, this is the best non-military UAP case ever.
Ooh.
And I mean that, we've already said, we're not going to do Roswell because everyone's done Roswell. And frankly, I just don't have the energy to do a 17-hour-long Roswell podcast on everything that's...
It's going to be hard to fit into 15 seconds, that one.
Like, you literally would need to do like an entire series, like a day by day. You could do an entire hour just on the first day of Roswell. So yeah, we won't be doing that. But Phoenix Lights, for me, is the best public sighting of a UAP ever. So it was March 13th, 1997, and many people say that this is the most famous mass sighting of all time. Thousands of people across Nevada, Arizona, and Mexico were witness to strange lights that really they haven't been fully explained ever. And I mean, this isn't just a case of like the military coming out and saying they were flares. These have never been fully explained. So there's been some explanations for some of the things that have been witnessed, but there's never been a definitive answer as to what people saw. And there's lots of people who saw this, who saw the same thing at the same time. And that's why, for me, it's so important, this case, for the whole phenomena at large. So the lights were seen from a 3-hour window between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. MST, and I think that's Mountain Time. I don't know specifically what I think MST is like Mountain Standard Time.
I think it's Standard Time because it's like Eastern Standard Time and Pacific Standard Time.
And I think MST is something about mountains. Let me just have Mountain Standard Time. Look at that, boom. So these were seen in a 3-hour window, and the sighting itself spanned about 300 miles, so nearly 500 kilometers, from the Nevada line through Phoenix to the edge of Tucson. And the duration of the sighting sort of varied dependent on the location. And a lot of people say that they saw different amount of lights, and some people didn't see just lights. They saw what they described as like a physical structure. The most witnesses that saw the craft reported seeing a huge V-shaped object with 5 spherical lights, while others say they only saw stationary or moving lights. So, like with the flares, with the UAP at 29 Palms, they said that they didn't see the rate of descent because it was so far away. There's now video evidence and photographic evidence to show that those lights did drop. It's just the rate of decline, because of how far away they were, was so small that many people just saw the Phoenix lights as static lights in the sky. But for me, that shows just how big this thing possibly was.
Yes, I was going to say, it's vast.
Yeah. So, like I said, a lot of witnesses reported seeing this V-shaped object. The official explanation initially for the lights was that they were flares dropped by military aircraft during a training exercise. But a lot of people that saw this, they don't believe that. And they truly believe that they witnessed something. Some people don't want to say extraterrestrial. A lot of people say they saw something paranormal. So they saw something that wasn't a terrestrial craft, but they don't want to go the full way and say, oh, it's aliens. Like, that's not what they want to do.
No.
The first report came from a witness in Henderson, Nevada, and they said that they saw a large V-shaped object traveling southeast. Then a former police officer in a place called Paulden in Arizona said that he saw a cluster of reddish-orangish lights disappear over the horizon. And then soon after that, more people in the Prescott Valley and then the city of Phoenix saw very similar lights in an almost identical formation to the 2 former witnesses. And again, these 2 people don't know each other. Yeah. They're 2 separate witnesses, dozens of miles away, seeing the same object, the same set of lights, and the same shaped craft. And then after that, like I said, Prescott Valley and Phoenix residents saw the same formation. Before we jump straight into the next bit of the show, what are your initial thoughts on what's happening here, and why I said last week that there could be some similarities between 29 Palms and Phoenix Lights?
Yeah. It's the shape of the lights, for one, I think, the triangle or pyramid shaped. This one seems a bit more substantial in regards because people are sharing the same memories, but from different parts. There's not like a shared memory where it's, it's persuaded by different opinions or anything like this. It's, anything like that. So that's what I'm taking from this is it's the same shape.
I've just sent you a photo very quickly, and it shows the formation of lights on the left, but then it actually shows on the right-hand side of this, it's a newspaper article from Star Magazine, and it says, caught on tape, UFO that terrorized 5 US towns. And that is the very famous newspaper clipping, but that's the shape, that V shape. So for the people listening to this, it isn't a triangle. It is very much the letter V. So it is two straight lines forming to a point with a single light at the top point and then 2 lights on each of the arms of the shape V. So that is the shape that people say that they witnessed. And that's why when I initially listened to Weaponized and I heard Corbell talking about the V-shaped craft, this triggered my UAP spidey senses.
Yeah.
What does that image that you're seeing there, what does that sort of evoke to you? Because that's not what you traditionally would think of as of a UFO or a UAP, is it?
No, definitely not. Not since obviously doing this. It's normally the cigar shape. It's almost like this one seems more of a carrier craft, if that makes sense, rather than those tiny, speedy ones that I think that are normally, that I've seen like the Nimitz and all that sort of thing. It's definitely more of a terrifying look.
Because you've got to remember as well that this is huge. This is a big object. This isn't a 747 in the sky. This is giant. This is like a football field size, moving silently in the air. And thousands of people are seeing this same thing.
Yeah, I'd say it's always from different parts of America as well. It's not one group of people from the same village, and I think that because people people can be persuaded, like I just said, and this one, if people are seeing the same thing from 100 miles away,
prior to smartphones, prior to social media, prior to text messaging, the only way that they could have warned people about this is like their pager or physically calling people. Like they would have had to have called people ahead of time if this was to be a legitimate hoax. And they would have had to have dialed thousands of people and said, right, you all need to pretend that this craft exists. You could do that now on social media within a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to send you a script. Stick to these words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no, if it's 97, do you say? Sorry,
1997.
Yeah, that predates every smartphone, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it gives it credence. Sorry, it gives it a bit of oomph. It's definitely piqued my interest more than the other one from last week. It's not as easily explainable. I think that, like we said, the last one was definitely it's 5 flares in the sky, dude. But this one's a bit more,
Yeah, and with the last one, all the witnesses were at the same place. So there was no other, there's not a witness on the other side of that mountain. There's not a witness 200 miles away. These are multiple thousands of people all having a shared experience of a silent, massive, ginormous floating V. Mm-hmm. And they all say lights down the craft. Now, some people didn't see the craft, but a lot of people said that they saw this thing literally go over their heads. And it blocked out stars. Like they could see in the dead of night that this thing was a physical. Yeah. I don't want to sound like Corbell, but it was a craft. It wasn't a formation of 5 flares that somehow traveled 300 miles and lasted 3 hours. This isn't.
Yeah,
this isn't 10 minutes. This isn't 10 minutes. They appear, they fizzle out. This is 3 hours. This is a long time.
And it'd be weird if the flare technology got worse in 30 years.
Exponentially worse. A lot worse.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to jump into the video evidence now and the witness statements, because for me, this is the bread and butter of why this case is so good.
Yeah.
So we do have, like I said, thousands of eyewitnesses, and we have video evidence. Now, prior to us starting the episode, you did watch the clip that I sent you.
Did.
Now, one of the most famous videos of the Phoenix Lights, it was taken by a man named Mike Crisden. He captured the V-shaped formation of lights as it moved over his house. He later said it felt like he was being watched by something intelligent. That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, something that vast would just go over your head.
Yeah, seeing that object go over your head, but also feeling like something was watching him, because we've spoken about this, about the sort of like the consciousness aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about the film Nope that we spoke about the other day, and in Nope, the craft knows when the thing knows when you're looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I saw that scene in Nope, it immediately reminded me of the Phoenix Lights. Of this, this is one of the famous statements: is he felt like he was being watched. That unsettling feeling of sentience from a craft is like no other case. Possibly the Ariel School case that we've been pushing off a few weeks, but I wanted to do this one because of the sort of similarities and the differences between 29 Palms. How would you feel if have you ever had a plane fly over your head and you think that thing's watching me?
No, no. I live right near the airport as well, so it would happen a lot. I never gone like, no, I think it's very obvious it's not an intelligent thing, isn't it? It goes back to being explainable. It's just a plane. But yeah, if this guy's experiencing that, like you said, it's the same thing. Like you can feel when someone's staring at you, when you're not looking at them yourself, someone's staring at you. It's like a defense mechanism. It's for someone coming up behind you. It's probably similar to that. It's put his hair on end, and he was like, someone's watching me. Like my defense instincts are going off.
Now, a lot of the videos that have been posted online, so the video I showed you prior of the news report where it's showing the lights going over the city, they've never been confirmed as to whether they are the lights and the objects that were spotted or if they are flares. Now, that won't make much sense at the moment, but we currently don't have an explanation as to what these objects are. Is this the craft or is this flares? When I say, is this flares, what do you initially think could have happened?
I think, sorry for one, I've never laughed at flares in my life, but now every time you say it, I can't help but crack up. Yeah. From my understanding of flares, they stay at a point because that's where you're emergency shooting. Like, you're trapped in the ocean, boom, this is where I am, this is an emergency flare. It wouldn't move.
And
it wouldn't.
I said earlier that the official response to this was that it was military aircraft conducting training. Why do you think these could be flares, bearing in mind there's an apparent military training exercise going on? What do you think possibly could have happened for that to come out? Have you got any guesses? No. Why are there flares? Why are there flares in the area? Have you got any guesses at all?
Because they've sensed a craft. Sorry, I don't want to use that word. They've said that their radar's gone off. Something's in there they can't explain, and it's dark, and it's nighttime. So I'm guessing they're sending flare-ups to see if they can see what they can see.
We'll cover that in a little bit. So,
did I get that right?
We've watched. You got a little bit of it right, yeah, you did. It does get a bit stranger. You did just speak about like radar showing things. Air traffic controllers at the Sky Harbor International Airport, they say that they didn't see anything unusual on their radars that night. So like they didn't show any crafts, they didn't show any planes, they didn't show anything at all blipping up to say there's an object here, which I find bizarre because if there were lights in the sky or if there were military planes in the sky, I feel like they would show on radar.
There'd be something.
So the military, they denied any involvement or knowledge of the lights. However, as you'll learn in a very short while, the military side of this case is wild. Like it's a very strange occurrence that for me gives this even more credence as to being one of the best UFO cases ever. So before we get into that, there's been a bit of controversy after this happened. So the governor of Arizona at the time was a chap called Fife Symington. He held a press conference the next day because people were worried. People didn't know what was going on. Like they didn't know what was happening. What is this object above our skies? He held a press conference just a short while after this where he jokingly dressed one of his aides up as an alien.
Oh my God.
And announced him to the crowd to say, we've caught the culprit. So do you remember when we spoke a few weeks ago in the Nope episode?
That's amazing.
We spoke a few weeks ago in the Nope episode, didn't we, about how there was this like mockery and there was this level of complete contempt for the UFO scene.
Yeah.
This is a very famous case because Fife Symington, who was the governor of Arizona at the time, literally wheeled out one of his helpers in an alien costume. However, years later, he admitted that he actually saw the lights himself, and he admits that he thought that they were otherworldly, and he said that he was trying to lighten the mood to avoid panic. So when we spoke a few weeks ago about this being mocked and it being shunned down and potential government cover-ups, we quite clearly have evidence here, potentially, of a pretty deep-rooted cover-up that starts or possibly finishes with the governor of Arizona knowing that something was there and that he saw them. And he doesn't even say, oh, I don't know what they were. He's steadfast in his belief now that what he witnessed was something that was not from Earth. I needed to get that out first, because that happened plays a big part into sort of the next segment of the episode. But what are your thoughts on that?
I can't help but think Fife, saw the light, rang up, he's like, I need to speak to someone about this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then they're like, look, Fife, chill out, mate. Play it, say it's a prank, whatever. Calm people down. We'll let you know in due course of what's next. So he's like, I'll put a guy in an alien costume and then just cover up. Like, radar technicians, you saw nothing on that radar, by the way. Like, nothing. Like, you saw nothing? Like, not even nothing. Like,
they didn't even see the potential military planes in the air that were on a training exercise. Weird that.
Oh, they must have shot the flares from outside the radar. Yeah. That makes sense. Like, birds and nothing. It stinks of dog doo-doo again, doesn't it? All this cover-up stuff.
I'm going to blow your mind a little bit, because I'm about to bring a name in of someone who I don't think, if I gave you 1,000 guesses, I don't think you would guess the name of the person I'm about to bring in.
Right.
One of the key witnesses to this event is Kurt Russell.
The actor Kurt Russell.
The Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. I love Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell was flying his own private Cessna at the time with his son, Oliver. They were on their way to Phoenix to visit his son's girlfriend, and they were flying that night in Phoenix, and Russell reported of seeing 6 lights in a V-shaped formation over the airport, and there's an official record of him making a call to air traffic control, telling him, there's something below me, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
According to Russell, it was his son who first noticed the craft, and he doesn't say lights, he does say craft, and pointed it out to his dad, and then they called air traffic control, who confirmed nothing was showing on radar. So, much like the Nimitz event, where these things were actively jamming their tracking radars, nothing was showing up, but Kurt Russell could physically see the object. He actually admits that he completely forgot about the entire experience until he saw a TV show about the event years later. He compares his experience to that of Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Right, classic.
That vision of seeing the craft, and it sort of like being in your brain and being this like all-encompassing thing. But the strange thing is, he lost his memory of it. Like, he had it in his subconscious somewhere, because it came back to him, and then he spoke to his son, and like all of these memories rushed back. But he physically forgot this entire event. So for me, that brings into question how many events like this happen where people don't even remember, or they see something, and like that other witness said, he felt like something sentient was watching him.
Yeah.
The thing knows that you're watching him, and that part of your consciousness that is remembering this event is being pushed to the side.
Yeah,
Did you think I was going to bring Kurt Russell into this?
I mean, I always hope you do, but no, not this one. That is weird, isn't it? Because if Cessnas don't have that higher flying height, do they?
No, not at all. So I think it was a Cessna. I'll have to double check what the...
Yeah, but he wasn't like 35,000 feet up. So
no.
He must have... So if that's under him, that's close to the ground.
And he's also saying that, like, he can physically see 6 lights, which is a bit strange because everyone else can see 5, but he talks about the V formation and he calls it a craft.
Mm-hmm.
That is... Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Why would like Kerr get involved, if that makes sense? Like, he's got nothing to gain or lose from it.
So I'm just looking up now. Kurt Russell's private plane. It wasn't a Cessna, but I'll tell you what, I'll sort of show you the image. Let me see if it shows up. There we go. So it's a prop plane.
Oh, okay, small. Yeah, small enough.
If you've seen Jurassic Park 3, think of the plane that crashes and gets hit by the Spinosaurus.
Of course, I have.
And that's the plane that they're in. So it's a double prop. It's a double prop. Small cabin plane. It's not like a
plane. Yeah, no, nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing spectacular. But he saw this thing and he explains it that it was a craft. So we've got. Let's just reiterate this. We've got witnesses from police officers. We've got witnesses on the ground, and we've got a key witness in the sky. And every single one of them claims to have seen something pretty similar. Not exactly the same. Some see 6 lights, some see 5 lights, some don't see the full craft, others see a full craft. But it's a shared sighting of something very...
It's a consistent one as well, yeah.
A consistent and similar sighting through hundreds of miles in the air and on the ground. An explanation is given as flares by the government and by the military. There's no way that flares can travel 300 miles.
Yep.
It doesn't cut it. They say that they saw the object over their head, and they state with confidence that there was defined edges and that the stars behind the object were being blocked out, meaning it was something physical. There was a physical object that was there. And again, those same people, they state that the object moves silently, and that's showing, as we'll always go back to, one of the key 5 observables of low visibility as one, but also potential anti-gravity technology as another.
You'd hear it when you...
Before we move into probably the juiciest bit, how is all of this sort of stacking up for you at the moment as a fully rounded sighting?
It's an exciting one. It's, like I said, everything makes sense in the way that you can't explain it. I know it's kind of a stupid sentence, but, the fact that, if it's shared experiences from different people from different parts of the country and stuff, and our beloved Kurt Russell even said something. Like, it's all fighting against parodying. It's all quite serious, and it doesn't like people trying to be famous from it, which I think a lot of these cases are just people like, I saw an alien. Like, it's a good one. It's
one of the key standouts of a lot of UFO cases is the people behind them. So you will have like the Betty and Barney Hill case, where Betty and Barney Hill are the name that's behind it. You've got Travis Walton's case, who is a very famous abductee, but Travis Walton is the man behind the case. You've got the USS Nimitz, which is very much David Fravor, Alex Dietrich, Kevin Day. Those are the names that are associated with it. What I love so much about Phoenix Lights is that... Phoenix Nights is Peter Kay, and that does have a name behind it. But Phoenix Lights sighting, for me, the reason it's such a plausible one is because there is no one who's like trying to make a name from themselves. There is no one fixed name behind it. It's thousands of people all seeing the same thing and all reporting the same thing. And they're all reporting similar sound, like no sound, 5 lights, 6 lights, V-shape, craft, defined edges. You can't explain it. That's the thing.
It's not explainable, and it's it has to be not otherworldly, but when something's unexplainable, then it does realm into the side of you can't explain it, so it has to stump.
We've looked at what it could be from an Earth point of view, and it doesn't meet any of those parameters. Some people say that this was stealth bomber. Stealth bombers they're loud. They're very loud. They also don't travel slowly. They're fast. They also don't have lights on them because they're stealth bombers. They don't have massive giant lights on the bottom of them. Sort of gives away the stealth side of things. A lot of people might say flares. Find me a flare that lasts 3 hours. Like, that's the thing about this one. So segment... it's not explainable.
I'll say it's
100%.
No, that's what I was going to say. It's juicy.
Now, segment 3, I think you're going to like the name of this one. I've literally just called it Cover Up.
Ooh, so that always gets me going.
This is the bit I think that we're going to have the best conversation about, because so far what we've talked about is there's been some objects, there's been some lights, people have seen it, blah, 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 blah. This is where it gets a bit juicy. So one of the main questions that's been raised by Phoenix Lights is whether there was a government cover-up of the entire event. We've already spoken slightly about that, and we know for certain that there was. Fife Symington brought out a guy dressed as an alien to try and play this down, only for years later to admit, oh, actually, I did see something, but I just didn't want to panic people.
Yeah,
I think that they're assuming we're stupid.
His NDA ran out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's probably what happened. His NDA he signed ran out.
But there's this assumption that we're all too stupid to be able to handle the truth, and it's insulting.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's very insulting. So we already have direct evidence of this potentially having a government cover-up. So when people do say, well, Phoenix Lights is explainable and there isn't a government cover-up, just show them the video of Fife Symington with his friend dressed as an alien, making a big laugh and a joke out of it, because the reality of the situation is that thousands of people in the city of Phoenix were terrified of what had just flown over their heads, and they needed their governor to help them through it. This was, for many people, quite a terrifying thing to witness, and they tried going to the military and they were given absolutely nothing back from them. We'll look into it, go away.
It was a literal cover-up. He covered a guy up. It was a literal...
Exactly.
A literal cover-up. Like,
so some witnesses to the event and researchers have accused the authorities of hiding or potentially even destroying evidence and lying about the nature and the origin of the lights. Again, a lot of people were ridiculed, and there was also some sort of like intimidation tactics that were put in place by Fife Symington being one of them when a local representative came forward and said, like, we need to look into this. She was basically harassed and intimidated and told to shut up, to the point where she had to just back down because of how much abuse that she was getting for believing in aliens at a time when UFOs were largely being mocked.
Yeah.
What they will point to, the researchers and the key witnesses to this, is that there's a lack of official investigation to this. There really wasn't anything other than, we'll have a look into it and then we'll get back to you. Very inconsistent explanations given by officials and delayed and completely incomplete disclosure of information. And they point to that as, well, here's your cover-up. You didn't do the due diligence to find out what this was. No. So the military response to Phoenix Lights was, like I said earlier, it was wild. First, they tried to deny anything unusual had happened, claiming that the lights were just flares that had been dropped by some training aircraft. Now, I'm going to go back to the video that I sent you earlier. That's not the craft. Those are flares. So what happened is that people saw this craft for 3 hours, and after it had vanished, the military went out in their planes and dropped flares over the towns that had the sightings in order to say, no, it's just training exercises. But the thing is that everyone could see the difference between the lights that they saw in the sky initially and the flares. They could see a very clear and defined difference. So the military did shoot flares that night. They did. So no one can stand there and say, well, there weren't flares that night. I'm saying this as a true believer that this was a craft.
Yeah.
There were military flares in the air that night. However, the speculation goes is that they went out after and fired these flares to give them a, look, see, we did go out and they were flares. So all the video that you see online, all of that footage you see online, they're flares. They're not craft. And a lot of people get mixed up because they use those images and they use those videos as evidence to say, look, this is the craft. No. Those are actually military flares that were dropped in direct formation to mirror what was seen by witnesses over the towns that saw the craft.
It's dirty, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dirty.
So...
Don't like it.
So, yeah, they did try to cover it up initially. They tried to completely deny it.
So that's planting like drugs on a person who's on the floor. They've covered. Yeah, that's.
So yeah,
they must think we're monkeys, man.
They tried to deny that anything unusual had happened and that it was literally just a few flares that had been dropped out of some training aircraft. Big deal. That happens all the time. There's military bases nearby. That didn't explain why so many people saw different shapes, different colours of lights, why some witnesses reported seeing a huge triangular craft flying over the city silently, not lights. So a lot of people say that they saw lights with like a bluish, reddish tinge. A lot of those sightings were quite far away. like at a horizon distance where is if you look at lights that are far away, very small points of light far away, they sort of flicker and they do let off what looks like an amalgamation of lots of colours. So this flares argument doesn't explain why people saw very, very similar formations, different colours, lights to the flares, and why they saw a physical craft. Now, this isn't the picture that we saw at 29 Palms, where it's very clearly low light compression creating a line in the image. This is people with a craft flying over their heads, physically being able to see it. So they then changed their story after this to say that the lights were actually part of a secret military project that they couldn't reveal for national security reasons. We can't tell you what this is. There were lights, but they're not flares. But we can't tell you what it is because it's super top secret, and we don't want our enemies to find out. So very sorry, it's completely secret, and we can never ever tell you. The irony of that is that made people more curious and suspicious because some researchers had started to accuse the military of covering up an alien encounter. So them then saying, "Oh well, we're sort of investigating something that's completely top secret," made them then think, well, maybe the US government are testing an alien craft. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they've backwards engineered, like Bob Lazar said, sort of 15 years prior to this. Maybe they're like testing out a top secret military UFO craft.
Yeah, and someone left the lights on.
Yeah, the irony is that made people more interested, not just from the conspiracy theory side of things, but also from like military enthusiasts wanting to know, well, what's this top secret weapon that America are working on? But they never, like the military never gave a satisfactory explanation for what the Phoenix Lights were. And yeah, lots of people believe that they saw an alien craft.
Did they give a reason why they lied about the flares?
Well, they said that they had to come out and say that we had to tell people they were flares because we can't tell you what this top secret project is we're working on.
Right. So they told us anyway.
But that doesn't explain why they went out and fired flares. Like that, it doesn't explain that.
In the same formation, it's
completely contradictory.
It stinks, man. I don't like it.
So at first they said, no, there's nothing there. But then they admitted that they were flares because they had fired flares. But then they said, no, they're not flares. It's a top secret project that we're working on.
Yeah, well, don't tell anyone that.
We just can't tell you what it is. And then after all of this, people started pushing the governor of Arizona to say, well, what the hell was going on? What is going on? And then they show the very famous press conference where they bring out their friend in an alien costume. I'm going to show you.
I know you're going to show me, and it's going to be that. I just still don't believe you. I just don't believe this is just.
I'm looking at it now.
I believed in you, Fife.
I'm looking at this now, and this is on CNN. Like this isn't like they just did a very quick press conference to local people. Like I've just sent you the pictures now. It's absurd. To think that this is the actual governor of Arizona did this. Yeah.
That's so stupid.
So they made a big deal of this, and they said, like, we've got to the bottom of the Phoenix Lights. We know what happened, and we are here to disclose exactly what happened. Here's the culprit. And he walked out wearing that.
Da, da, da.
Yeah. So nobody can say that there was not an attempted cover-up by government personnel, because we have evidence of it, and it's literally on CNN.
They flaunted it. That's what they've done.
They were so egregious with their cover-up that it doesn't even border on parody. It is quite literally the dictionary definition of parody. They hauled a guy out.
Maybe they did it in the the way like the theory of Bob Lazar is they give all this information to a guy who's blatantly
Yeah.
So they do something so stupid and so ridiculous that people that's all they talk about is this. Like
a lot of the times, if you talk to people, oh, the Phoenix Lights, blah blah blah, one of the things they remember is this press conference where, oh, wasn't that the one where the guy hauled out the alien dude?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was. Yeah.
I thought it was explained. Like,
So
it was that guy. Oh,
that's where we're at with the sort of cover-up thing. Now, there are some attempts to, I don't want to say debunk, because I don't feel like you can debunk this, but there are attempts and arguments to say, well, there's no evidence of a government cover-up, and that the Phoenix Lights can and are explainable through either like natural or man-made causes. Mm-hmm. So they identify the first set of lights as being A-10 Warthog aircraft returning from their training mission. And then they say that the second set of lights that people saw were the illumination flares dropped off by another flight of A-10s over a military range. So what people are basically saying is, no, you didn't see a craft. What you saw were lots of planes overhead, and you were seeing the front lights of those planes, and they fly in a V formation, and that's what you saw. And you've just lined up in your head that there's a craft there, but that doesn't explain why there was no noise.
To thousands of people. Sorry, to thousands.
To thousands of people.
We're telling you, all 1,000 of you, this is what you saw.
One of the other things that they note is, although many witnesses say that they did see a craft, not everyone did, and that there's no radar or satellite data to confirm the presence of a large craft. But I don't think radar data can be taken into this, because we've already got, well, not already, but we've had, like we've spoken about previously, these objects having capabilities to avoid radar. Mm-hmm. They could potentially be a technology that outstrips our military by, like I said a few weeks ago, 1,000 years. So to not show up on radar, for me, doesn't say much, but...
we actually have the same capability, to not be on radar.
Yeah. We have that capability. The capability of... I don't know if you know how the stealth bomber works. I'm a bit of an aviation nerd, so I know how it works. The shape of the stealth bomber is pretty identical to the shape of a swallow in flight, so with its wings out and its body very curved. And they go so high that by the time the radar gets to them, it's very scattered out, and the shape of the delta wing can't be picked up properly on radar. So it's not that they're a stealth bomber as such, it's just that the shape of the delta wing is very difficult to pick up at radar at high altitudes.
Right.
So when people do say, well, they spoke about the fact that it was a top secret Department of Defense project and they couldn't speak about it, it could have been a new generation of stealth bomber, that again doesn't make sense, because stealth bombers fly at a very high range, and people saw this at a close enough range to see defined edges.
And it was under Kurt's plane. Which means it wasn't very high.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He was looking down at it from... I forgot about that completely. He was looking down at the object in the air while it was above an airport. Military training exercises don't happen over airports. That would be dumb. They don't happen. We're... Like, me and James live in Devon, and there's a lot of people, I don't know if you know this, but died in military training during World War II when they were training to do the storming of Normandy, because they did their training with live rounds, but they also did it on public beaches, and they fired live rounds, and lots of people died during training.
I didn't know
They don't want to put civilians in the way of training exercises. That would be absurd. So to think that there is active military training happening over a span of 300 miles in active air, where there are planes flying above civilian cities, is absurd. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I might be wrong with this, I probably am, but like a lot of different, places in America seem to have different jurisdictions and stuff, and, trying to communicate with if it's over 300 miles, it hit, what do you say, Arizona, was that all the same state?
Arizona, Nevada, and there were sightings in Mexico as well.
So that's three different states and a different country.
Two states, two countries.
And a different country.
Yeah.
So to try to coerce that into working all at the same time seems a bit far-fetched, if you ask me.
Here's the thing, whenever... I don't want to go too far down the conspiracy rabbit hole, because some people go way too far with that. Yeah. But when people talk about, like, mass government cover-ups, I've been like a team manager before where I've managed like 10, 15 people.
Mm-hmm.
I defy anyone to get 10 or 15 people to do exactly as you ask them properly. I've been in positions of management and I've put like very, very simple, straightforward like sales techniques in place. And to get 10 people to all follow a sales script, or to all follow a sales process, or to all follow like a point of sale directive is next to impossible.
Mm-hmm.
To imagine that you could get hundreds of military personnel, thousands of military personnel, and pilots, and all the technicians, and all the weapons specialists, and the radar specialists, to think that you could coordinate those amount of people over two states, and in a separate country, and work together as a solid team, and then in all of this time, none of them come forward and say, well, actually, here's what the top secret project was. It's madness to think that this could be a coordinated effort in order to throw people off the set. Like, it's mad. And that's why I believe that this was like an actual craft, because you look at the military's actual response to it. They chucked a load of flares in the sky and went, let's hope that they believe that. That was the military response. And that makes sense from a point of view of like chain of command and jurisdiction. Chuck some planes in the air, throw some flares out the back, and let's hope for the best. That's a very easy thing to coordinate, because you get 5 pilots in their planes, you throw them out and you say, chuck some flares out. That's easy. What's not easy is to get literally thousands of people to coordinate this mass conspiracy, because the reality is that governments aren't that smart. They're really not.
Oh, no. It's like I said, it's insulting for one. And I feel like they just assume that most of us are just going to go, fair enough.
Oh, you say it's flares? Fine. Oh, okay.
We're back to Jeremy Kyle. Like,
top secret plans, cool.
Oh, I don't need to know that as a civilian. I don't need to know their top secret plans. Yeah, it's baffles, isn't it?
Like, there is a genuine cover-up to this, but it's not. It's like the plot of Glass Onion. It's not that smart, guys. It doesn't have to be this hyper-intelligent, everyone's involved, it goes all the way to the top. What happened is the military in the area had absolutely no idea what was going on. There's multiple thousands of reports of a giant silent flying craft. They panic, they don't know what to do, and they just try and muddy the water in order to throw people off the scent. And what's the easiest way to do that? Get some planes in the sky and chuck some flares out the back.
Flares, it's the only answer.
Yeah,
flares.
That's what makes sense. And do I believe that there's a concerted effort within governments to try and quash UAP disclosure? I absolutely do. But it's not a case of there being this like overarching world government that are pulling strings all the place.
No.
It's probably just one guy in an office who goes, I'll look after that. That's what happened with Blue Book. That's what's happening with Arrow.
I'll drip feed them. I'll just drip feed them a little bit of, keep them interested for a little bit. But it's not a worldwide government that's trying to suppress all of this. No,
they probably don't want it coming out. So they've got one guy at Arrow, Project Blue Book, or ATIP, or whoever it was before, and they go, "Oh, you look after UFOs, and if you get anything juicy, just sit on it for a bit." That's probably what's happening.
He probably has a macro built into his laptop that just has flares. So he just pushes, just flares.
Yeah,
like
flares again. Oh, yeah.
It's like the Simpsons episode when Homer pushes Y. That's all it is, just flares.
Like, it's just... I know that's very boring, but that is the reality of this, is there's probably a very boring explanation as to why this is all still being covered up. And it's probably just a dude who's just paid by the government to just be like, oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I do believe that there is a concerted effort not to have this come out, because rightly or wrongly, I think a lot of people would react in a very strange way to potentially finding out that we're not alone. But more than anything, I think it's probably a military reason. If the US government does have crafts, they probably don't want other governments finding out. Yeah. And probably all the governments of the world have probably got some form of stuff they're working on, and like our material science probably just isn't where it needs to be.
Also, 100%, 100% they would have sold it to the lesser countries. Not that there's, you know what I mean? Like, all the big superpowers would, if this is true, would have sold some technology of, have that, go on, just, you know, we'll have a little bit of that for you.
And do I think that there's a global conspiracy that's fronted by a huge worldwide organization in order to suppress all of UAPs? No, I don't. Do I believe that most big governments have a department within their military who oversee all this stuff and just sort of sit on it for ages and don't really do anything, and it's very tied up in bureaucracy? Yeah. Yeah, probably that's the boring truth of it.
I also think there's a lot more to worry about for these. Not saying the governments are perfect, but they got a lot of a lot of stuff to, like, you know, concern themselves with. And if, you know, it's probably, like you said, the truth of it is just realistically, a couple of people in the basement.
Yeah, there has been a cover up here. Like, it's very plain to see that something
100%.
was covered up. But the boring truth of it is probably that we'll never find out, because it's just a document in someone's ring binder.
Yeah,
that's the frustration of all this.
Nice coffee ring stain on it.
Yeah, that's the frustration of all this, is that there's probably a file somewhere in a government official's office, Phoenix Lights, and it's probably hundreds of pages thick, and it's probably the most compelling evidence you'll ever find, but it's tied up in so much red tape, and it's been redacted so much, and there's black marker ink all over the thing, that it's probably just redacted to the point of being useless now anyway. And that's the boring truth.
I think that'll be a running theme, really, is we can believe and, you know, hope all we want and stuff, but as all things, we are tied to what we're shown.
Me, this is the case. Like, this is the bread and butter, because really it does have everything. It has compelling witness statements.
Mm-hmm.
It happens over a large area. It's got verifiable accounts. It got mass media coverage. It had a government cover-up. We've got evidence from videos showing the flares after the event to show that there was definitely something that was sort of planted. And we've got Kurt Russell. What more could you want?
Nothing. Love Kurt Russell.
So what did you think of this case as a whole then, James?
I'm stuffed from the something burger. Let's put it that way. It's
a juicy burger.
It's satisfying because it was very great to talk about, but it wasn't dumb. It just wasn't. Apart from the government side, that was very dumb. But you know, no one seems to be backing down for witness statements and stuff. It just seems people saw the same thing in the sky, and
there are still people in Phoenix to this day who swear by what they saw.
Yeah,
swear by it.
I was going to say, I can't help by the picture that you showed me of the supposed craft. It looks very much in the shape of a stealth bomber anyway. So
yeah, it does.
It probably would skip radar like if it's in that shape. But it was a good, like, it was, what really sold it was the different testimonies from 3 different parts of the world. It's you know, it's not the same group of people in the same village. It's separate people, you know, and Kurt Russell.
I've only scratched the surface of this. Like, I want to limit our episodes really to like an hour long. So there's only so much we can go into, but this is a case where I could just, there are books about this. There's dozens of books. There's dozens of documentaries and YouTube videos like this.
Yeah, I'm going to watch a documentary on this when we're finished. This is
genuinely...
This is intrigued the hell out of me.
This is the most... I love the word compelling. We say it, I think, every week. This, for me, is like the most compelling eyewitness testimony, apart from potentially the episode we're going to do next week, which is the aerial school sighting. I think that we should do that next week, because I want to get... We've had a lot of nothing burgers recently, and I want to fill you up with some juicy burgers. We've had our Angus steak this week. I think we're going to have a nice bit of Wagyu next week.
Jesus, A5.
Yeah, man. But what are your sort of like closing thoughts on the Phoenix Lights then?
This one's intrigued me more than anyone before, I think. The Nimitz was definitely amazing, but this, I think it's because it's just so vast in the size and in the amount of people that saw the same thing. I'm very a firm believer of, you know, in a crowd of people, only one person will step forward if someone's being beaten up, for example.
Yeah.
Because we just kind of, I know there's a phrase for it, but I can't remember at the top of my head, but people just
spectator syndrome.
Thank you. Yeah, so people just do what other people are doing, where you get the one, person that doesn't. I'm a firm believer in if 50 people see one thing, eventually all memories will blur together.
Yeah.
This. But there's so many people in such a vast space. Yeah, I think this is my favorite one so far.
I like that. It's a case that since we started doing this the first time round, I've got like a list of like 5 or 6 top cases that I want to do. And obviously over time, this show is going to evolve into something a bit different. Like we're doing UFOs at the moment. There's going to be a period of time where we're probably going to look into stuff like cryptids and ancient lore. So I want to get some of the juicy UFO stuff out first, because that's my jam. And then when we move into stuff that I'm not really that sort of like clued up on, that's where me and James, we can be in the same situation. But what I want to do at the moment is that there needs to be a conscious effort to bring factual information to the forefront of this. And the more people that talk about stuff like the Phoenix Lights, talk about aerial school, talk about Varginha in Brazil, which is, again, another great case, but I can't do that justice. You need to watch James Fox's documentary on that. The more people that talk about this factual-based information, the better, in my mind. I don't want to be flooded with, say this every week, grainy pictures in the dark of amorphous blobs of light.
Yeah.
That means nothing to me. Or 50 witnesses saw this in a military base and we've heard from 2 of them. Where are the other 48?
Yeah.
That's not what I want. What I want is like juicy, real information.
For me, this one isn't fame driven. I hate when it comes from like a point of fame. Like, I've seen this. Look at me. I saw this. Like, I don't want that. The more I go into this, I don't want just, news story about the last episode's prime example of that, I think.
Yeah.
This one is no one's come forward. Like, Derek hasn't gone like, look, I saw this. Listen to me. I'm Derek.
Yeah. Like there are a few key witnesses that still talk about it, but the reason they still talk about it is because they feel that this is serious enough to still talk about.
Yeah.
But at the time, everyone in Phoenix saw this. Thousands of people, highly populated area. So I'm really glad you enjoyed this, and definitely like
one of my favorite one.
Go down the rabbit hole of this case over the next few days and weeks.
I'm going to make a sandwich and watch the hell out of some documentaries now, because this is why I love doing this. This is why I'm on board for this.
On that note, I think that's as good a place to leave it, because James is about to go and nerd out on some UAPs. I like that.
Damn right. I'm going to start turning.
Yes, you are. The next time I see you, you're going to come on and just have a full tinfoil hat on.
Next time I'll be like, hi, I'm James, and my co-host is Harry. Yeah,
it's fine by me, mate. It's a lot less work that I have to do. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Like I said at the start of the show, very much a passion project. So if you can share this, if you can like this, if you can subscribe to us, send it to a friend, follow us on all of the social medias. And like I said, we are now on YouTube as well. That would be much appreciated. So really all I've got to say now is open your mind and watch the skies. I said it right this time.
Nailed it.
We'll catch you next week. Cheers, guys.
Love ya.